Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Remember this?
You think you do, but you don't.
This one little sentence from the then executive producer, J Allen Brack, really set the World of Warcraft community alight, especially on the verge of the release of Warlords of Draenor, arguably the most poorly regarded expansion for the game ever. Well, closely contested by Battle for Azeroth these days it seems. This same person is now president of Blizzard and announced Classic itself, somewhat ironically. Do you remember what he said apart from this little phrase though? What, given the circumstances and the short time to answer, he chose to focus on what we would have missed out on in terms of convenience that had been brought by later expansions, such as LFG instantly getting into a dungeon, perhaps LFR, maybe he would have even said collection logs, given the time period. I often wonder, given more time, what else he might have said, what other reasons he may have given for why he believed that the player base wouldn't want to go back and revisit Classic. Classic was one of the most hyped up events I have ever seen when compared to the next to zero advertising it received, and it was one of the biggest gaming moments of the entire decade. With over 1 million concurrent viewers on Twitch TV alone on launch day, and pretty much every big name from all over the place jumped in to get their piece of the Classic pie. Even since, Classic has really put a lot of life back into viewership of World of Warcraft, and people taking interest in the game as a spectator, not solely a player. How many of the people jumping back in though sold themselves on nostalgia, however, on ideals of community, learning together, forming groups, world PvP, and so on, compared to what we ended up seeing, which was more or less everybody sitting in dungeon cleaves for days upon end, whilst taking handouts. I talked about min-maxing recently in a video, and how I believe many people these days are treating WoW as more of an objective-based game these days, which for me means you play for an end goal, and certain objectives of the game are just there to be ticked off, not particularly enjoyed themselves for what they are. And I thought many people got caught up in a trap of playing like this whilst not really having any vision or end goal that would last. In fact, my own channel started after hearing about Classic since I was so excited to get back into it. I've been interested in making videos for some time, learning something new, and this seemed like the perfect time to put those two together. Not only to do that, but to show my opinion and hopefully fill in the gaps I'd missed in vanilla itself, and I still find myself with things to do daily in game, though I do have far too many alts to deal with at the moment still. These days, Blizzard hides their subscriber count ever since the drop off at the start of Warlords of Draenor, funnily enough, so we can only guess what the actual number of players currently subbed are, and indeed the amount of players that Classic brought back to the franchise after many years of hiatus. A drop-off following launch was of course expected, as it is with anything new. It's about how many players can be retained. In vanilla and the first two expansions, the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, the player base only grew. Even today with our massive servers, I don't think subscribers combined from retail and classic could match the numbers that they were actually pulling in the vanilla timeline. And of course, many people are becoming increasingly critical of Classic as well as we set into the third content phase and the halfway point. Is Brack having the last laugh after all? Classic lacks the repeatable content at endgame that retail has built into its core gameplay systems over the years. Arena, Mythic Plus, daily quests, world objectives, collection logs, pets, mounts, Azerite power, corruptor gear, achievements, and so many more things. In Classic, leveling takes a comparatively very long time and is so much more slower paced. For many classes, handling two mobs at the same time to you is actually threatening. On retail, you need to pull pretty much everything in vision before you're in any actual danger, and even then you can blast off so many abilities like some kind of turret and instantly be ready to go to the next pack, no downtime. When you look to retail, you log in and you have your daily checklist. The game sort of tells you what you're doing today. It tells you what content is available, puts it straight in front of your face. And whilst yes, you can choose to do different things at endgame, it's very much laid out in front of you. In Classic, you tell the game what you want to do. Your goals are of your own making, and I think many people have hit those goals that pretty much anybody can imagine. Get a level 60, do Molten Core, and sort of fizzle out. After that, can you collect mounts in Classic? Yeah. Pets? Sure you can. Are there achievements? Well, I would call reaching your PvP rank goal an achievement, or getting exalted with a certain faction, or holding 1,000 gold at one time. These are the kind of things I'm talking about, and to be honest though, collecting is kind of a pain due to bag space restrictions. I do feel like some criticism is owed to Blizzard, however, in the handling of certain mechanics or decisions made throughout Classic so far. Of course, we have had certain things known before the game even came out: spell batching, melee leeway, nerfed Alterac Valley, which all sort of slipped under the rug, and some of these pre-release were even applauded, whereas many have now turned their back on these mechanics. Equally, World PvP without Battlegrounds, akin to how it was in vanilla, was a bit much for PvP servers that turned into open world battlegrounds with on attacks farms at flight paths and dungeon entrances. In fact, the PvP and stories of how glorious World PvP was from back in the day seem to have fallen pretty flat overall. I wonder how this would change attitudes towards flying in the Burning Crusade if we end up getting it. That's a video for another day for sure. Equally, Battlegrounds have been plagued by pre-mades or hopelessly one-sided. Having a close and competitive battleground doesn't really happen. Well, not in Alterac Valley, anyway. And with recent changes to Blizzard attempting to nerf Alliance pre-mades, it just changes the meta over to Warsong Gulch, which functionally changes little for the Alliance pugs, whilst Horde suffer even longer queue times. And these queues aren't a result of lack of players, there are just so many more people playing Horde, especially outnumbering Alliance when it comes to actively engaging in PvP. Of course, the real underlying problem here is just the honour and ranking system, which I think it's fair to see why Blizzard binned it at the first given opportunity in TBC. If the key metric of success in a competitive system is time investment, it can only lead to many negative activities like camping, ganking, botting, account sharing, and just overall an extremely unhealthy lifestyle for the person behind the screen. Looking back to what Brack said, he believed that people's key concern would have been with the convenience that the game offered, but this appears to have only affected a very small segment of the players who have taken part in Classic WoW. What seems to have been much bigger is people not knowing what to do with themselves in-game, or a lack of content end-game once you've got geared and raided. There is PvP, and I've just spoken about the current state of that, or there is gold farming, which not even every class has access to do in a very efficient manner. Aside from that, there's leveling another character, and I have a feeling that one time around Azeroth may have been enough for many players when it can easily take up to 8 days played. All the same, when compared to vanilla, we know that based on information available, that a medium populated classic servers has more players than even the most crowded vanilla server ever did, meaning that despite all of the above, there's still clearly a very large player base coming back every day to work on something new, to reach a personal goal, or to complete something. And I made a video a little while ago outlining my thoughts on the Classic Plus versus the Burning Crusade debate, if you can call it that, and I would definitely say check it out. I think it's been one of my better videos recently, as it's something that really interests me. And since then, and even before then, I've heard many people say that one of the big driving forces for them to finish capping out their character is that one day they hope that TBC will be announced. People are investing so much time in a main or perhaps an alt in the hopes that the expansion for the game will come out one day. If that isn't early hype, I don't know what is. And I've actually been doing the same. TBC did make many well-liked changes to the game, like Arena, the honour and ranking system going, heroic dungeons, more competitive raiding content, catch-up gear systems, new class abilities and talents, as well as a few more controversial ones such as flying. And let's be real, you know it's going to be the easy option for Blizzard to do. They even had mentioned themselves that they've done much of the groundwork to roll out expansions now that they've rolled out Classic fully, and you can bet this will bring a whole lot more cash to them on release. So you think you do, but you don't. Did Brack have it right after all? Well, no. Even if we were to extend his initial comments about convenience to bugs or other parts of the game like travel, difficulty with gold, or any of the other things you can imagine, Classic still offered and continues to offer so much. Even if you're still playing daily, have left the game, taking a break, or eagerly awaiting a TBC announcement, there was still the first time you ran Dead Mines or Wailing Caverns again, still upgrading your cloak from a grey to a green, still finding your first rare item, still buying your level 40 mount at level 52, still unlocking that one class ability you loved so much back in the day, still hitting level 60 after weeks of blood, sweat and tears, still reliving a bit of what made you play this game in the first place, and remembering the old Blizzard. Classic has rough edges, it's incomplete, some of it's silly, some of it's frustrating, but there is something about it, something that makes a 15-year-old game still find a spot in today's ever-increasingly competitive industry. It retains a charm, something that we just don't get or experience from big AAA titles these days. I think there is a lot of positives enjoyed by thousands upon thousands, and for that, I think I do, and actually, I do. Though Classic may end up being a bit more of a seasonal game to check out as new content comes, which incidentally, despite all the daily activity, is what has been happened with retail over the years, I still find things to do daily, enjoy the game for what it is, and frankly, I'm okay with that. How are you getting on at the moment? Any plans for the future, or holding out for a TBC announcement, maybe even later this year? Who knows what the future holds? I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.